here. And I put the attendees list up on your screens so that you can see who's available to speak here. And I put the attendees list up on your. Okay, we are live.
Thank you. And welcome to House TRW. And welcome Representative Western. We have, Barb has some housekeeping items she'd like to address. So before we begin our meeting, I'll let her address the group.
Thank you, Chairwoman. You have a contact information sheet inside your folder. It should be on the right side. And if you can even leave that in the folder, I will collect that at the end and I'll compile that information. There's coffee and snacks in this room and cool water. There's a water machine that's filtered water that's really good. And your statutes are actually in this room, but I kind of pulled the door because it hums. But they're in there if you need them, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it. Welcome, Representative Jennings. All right, well, we will call this meeting to order. And Barb, if you would please call roll.
Representative Banks?
Here.
Haroldson?
Here.
Hunt?
Here.
Jennings?
Here.
Knapp?
Here.
Vice Chair Newsom? Here. Sweeney?
Here.
Winter?
Here.
And Chairwoman Flintner.
Here. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think everybody knows the rules of the road. Speak through your chairman. And I think that's it. We have before us today House Bill 84, the Naomi Hunting Age Exception Act. Representative Western, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. So this is a pretty straightforward bill. It's actually a constituent bill. The backstory is someone reached out to me in my district who had a dear friend who had a daughter named Naomi, who was suffering from a terminal illness. I can't remember the exact type of cancer, but was a Make-A-Wish kid, and she loved to hunt, but she couldn't harvest big game because I think at the time she was 10. This was about 18 months ago when the request first came to me. And they explained that, you know, one of her things was she really wanted to big game hunt in Wyoming. And, you know, they reached out to the commissioner and of Game and Fish, and he said, I would love to grant exemption, but statutorily, I just can't. I'd be breaking the law. And so they came to me, and that's kind of the genesis of this bill and why we're here. It's really, if you look on subparagraph D, that's kind of the meat and bones of it, and that it grants the commissioner with the consent of the Game and Fish Commission to grant exemptions to the age requirement, specifically for someone who has some kind of terminal or serious health condition. And so that's, quite frankly, that's really it. So I stand for any questions. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Representative Western. Questions for Representative Western Committee? Yes, Representative Sweeney.
Sorry, Madam Chairman,
It's
I
okay.
didn't realize that'd be that quick. So without this, the department decided they just couldn't grant any waivers, period, no matter what.
Representative Western.
Madam Chairwoman, Representative Sweeney, that's correct. I actually spoke with the director about this specific case. He said, you know, we absolutely would have loved to have worked with them, but because it's so clearly defined in statute, we'd be breaking the law. And obviously, you know, not a great look for a director to be breaking statute. So that's kind of the whole reason behind it, is that there was no workaround at all. It's very clear, as you can see in statute, that of the age limit, and there's no exemptions. So correct. There was no workaround other than this. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Representative Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Representative Western, is there any age restriction at all? Was that discussed before this was prepared as far as a minimal age on this, for this bill?
Representative Western.
Madam Chairman, Representative Winter, there wasn't because in this, in the case of Naomi, I think it said she was 10 at the time. So I want to give it some kind of flexibility at the discretion of the commissioner with the consent of the Game and Fish Commission on a case-by-case basis, all within the bounds of it being a child who has some type of terminal illness. So there was no minimum age that was discussed.
Follow up, Representative Winter.
I guess, thank you, Madam Chairman. I was just curious if any consideration had been given to an absolute minimum where it could or could not be approved.
Representative Western.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. There was no discussion about that minimum. Again, I saw at the discretion of the commissioner as well as the commission. I would like to think if it's, a super, I don't know, 5 or 4 or whatever that age is, obviously, I'm sure they would probably have to use their discretion at saying, okay, this kid can't even handle a firearm. But once you get to that age of 9, 10 years old, 11 years old, where kids certainly have that capability, I think would be within the commission's discussion. Not that obviously I want to speak on behalf of the commissioner or the commission. So.
Thank you. Further test first, yeah, Representative Harrelson. Oh, Representative Hunt.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess one of the things that I would be interested to know is, has there been any discussion or consideration? I mean, I certainly understand the gravity of those children and their parents and the situation they find themselves in, but that if ultimately a child who is deemed terminally ill or they have some degenerative disease then lives to the age of 14, whether expected to or not, would that create any complication? I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Representative Western.
Madam Chairwoman, Representative Hunt. For sure, I think that is a possibility. I mean, quite frankly, that would be the most desired outcome, is that the kid does beat the odds and make it to that age. But this is just in the situation that the event that they don't. But in my discussions with the department, they didn't voice any concerns in that kind of scenario. So,
Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Western, one question, would these individuals have to participate in a hunter safety course of any sort, or would that be foregoed? I was reading real quick and I didn't see it. I just was wondering if that was something you could answer.
Madam Chairwoman, Representative Harrelson, I don't believe so, but we'd have to fact check with the department. And I think I saw, the chief game warden, I think is in the Zoom waiting room. So he might be better qualified to answer that than me.
Follow up.
Thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair. Excellent. And we'll get that answered. The other thing I think that we need to understand is this would be very closely regulated by a mentoring hunter. And so I think this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for these students to be able to go into a field that maybe because their quality of life is waning or depleting very quickly. I think this is definitely something that would be good to have the ability to do. And since it's a 1-by-1 or a case-by-case situation, I think that's a great opportunity for our Game and Fish to have some ability to make those decisions and do it by the committee. So I'm definitely 100% for it. I just wanted to know if hunter safety would be, because if they can't complete hunter safety, they probably shouldn't be able to hunt either. And I know that's kind of harsh, but maybe because there's not really anything on the hunter safety program that would require a lot of exerting and physical energy, but it is the ability to be safe in the field. So just a question I had. So thank you very much.
Representative Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Going back a bit to my previous question, just looking at the language on line 2, page 20, or page 2, line 23, sorry. That the language says that who demonstrate that they're suffering from a progressive degenerative or malignant condition. Was there any discussion with the department on what defines the demonstration? I guess what I'm saying is would they need a doctor's certification effectively to say this child is terminal, and the doctor has, signed off on that, or was any talk of that?
Representative Western.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Representative Hunt. There wasn't a ton of talk to that specific end. I would think that through common sense, the department would say, okay, maybe just give us a little debrief on your medical situation, a letter from your physician saying that this is kind of the current status. I would imagine that's something they will probably go through, but again, I'm just quite frankly, that speculation. I don't want to speak on behalf of the department.
Further questions, committee, for Representative Western? Okay, I don't see any legislators in the room, so we will bring in the department. Chief King, if you would like to join us at this time.
Madam Chairman, he's coming into the room right now.
Okay. Chief King, welcome. And if you would like to provide testimony to House Bill 84, the floor is yours.
Madam Chair, thank you, members of the committee. Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and appreciate Representative Western and his efforts. Much of what I heard during the testimony and the questions really get to the heart of what I plan to talk about today. As Representative Western mentioned, the bill really is quite straightforward. It just makes a statutory change to allow the Game and Fish Commission to make an exception to the minimum age to take bigger trophy game animals. And so provides a lot of flexibility for the commission to do what they would need to do to implement this bill. So it is fairly straightforward. There was a question regarding hunter education, and this bill does not exempt a person from our hunter education requirements. However, there are options for a person to participate in a mentor program to where if they were unable to get into a class, they could still meet our hunter education requirements through the hunter mentor program. So I would see that, I wouldn't see that as a barrier to somebody participating in this program. There was also a question regarding how we would handle the requirement to demonstrate. And I think through commission rule and regulation, it would be fairly simple to just simply require a doctor's note. And really, I don't think it would require much more than that. So that should be fairly easy to address. I do have a couple of items that I think would help improve our ability for the commission to implement rules and regulations. And if I could just talk through those quickly.
Please go ahead, Chief King.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So on page 3, line 2 of the bill, the word hunt is slightly different than the language that we typically use in Title 23. So in Title 23, usually throughout Title 23, we use the word take. And I would recommend that word hunt be changed to the word take to be more consistent with other language in Title 23. I have 3 items total. I can run through them all quickly, or we can go through each one individually, whichever your preference would be.
Please give them all to us, Chief King, and then we can discuss it after you're done.
Okay, thank you. The second consideration that I would bring forward is that on page 3, line 1, the progressive, degenerative, or malignant condition. In other statutes that are somewhat similar to this, we use the language life-threatening illness. And it may be cleaner for us to incorporate that language. So if that could be considered, that we change that wording on page 3, line 1 to life-threatening illness. And then the last consideration that I'd bring forward that I think would be very helpful for the commission in promulgating rules is to consider the effective date. So in this bill, section 2 and 3 adjust, speak to the effective date, which perhaps LSO could step us through this, but I think it would be easier if we simply had an effective date of January 1, 2022. That would give us the opportunity to go through the APA process to promulgate rules and regulations to get this implemented for the fall of 2022. And with that, I'll stand for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Chief King. Representative Hunt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. King, to your suggested language change with sort of condensing the progressive degenerative or malignant conditions into life-threatening illness, I think that kind of brings it back to one of my concerns. I guess my point is that I can see where a child would have a quote unquote degenerative illness that wouldn't necessarily be a terminal illness. And so I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? I get the point of that it would not necessarily be a terminal illness, but that it would be a degenerative illness of such that by the time they reach the age of 14, they would be unable to go out on a hunt. But do you have any thoughts to that possible complication?
Chief King?
Madam Chair, Representative Hunt, I think the intent of this bill is to provide an opportunity for someone who may be suffering from one of these conditions to have that exemption to the current minimum age, which by statute is 12. And so I would envision a scenario where a 10 or an 11-year-old who is suffering from a life-threatening illness and it looks highly likely that they're going to be unable to reach the age of 12 and participate in the hunt as the current minimum age statute requires, that the commission through rule and regulation could provide that opportunity to basically cover that span of time from the current age they're at to the age of 12. Once a person reaches the age of 12, then they essentially no longer need this exception. They are then old enough to hunt under the current statute. And as long as they had the hunter safety requirement met, they could then participate in a hunt.
Thank you. Further questions, committee? Representative Sweeney?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I guess, Chief, you believe it'll take that long on rulemaking? That's question number one. Number two, on gaining, being able to get a license. I'm taking it by your comments that they would have to, or Make-A-Wish or whomever, would have to go through the normal license process, or is there some sort of, I mean, we have a donated license program that they could apply for. Would they be able to get a landowner's tag and be able to utilize that versus a family member, or will that take special exceptions also in the rulemaking process?
Excellent question, Representative Sweeney. Chief King?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Representative Sweeney, that is an excellent question. So currently this bill does not address any donation of licenses that's different than what's currently in statute and regulation. So for resident youth, they could certainly purchase any license that's available over the counter, which our trophy game licenses are available over the counter, and general licenses, but it doesn't address limited quota. We do in statute have a provision. It's within Title 23 that allows the commission to issue a certain number of licenses to youth that are under 20 who are suffering from a life-threatening illness. That provision allows for deer, elk, antelope, and turkey licenses to be issued. So in the case that a person suffering from a life-threatening illness came forth and was going to utilize this exception, there is that current provision that would allow the commission to provide one of those licenses. Those licenses are required to have a sponsoring organization, but I don't think that would be much of an issue to address. So that is on the books right now. But there aren't any other provisions in place that would allow, say, a family member to donate a license to somebody.
So Chief King, do we need to add that component then, do you think, to this piece of legislation? Should we, and I'm looking at 23.2.102, and I'm assuming you're speaking to subsection C. No person 14 years of age or older shall take any game bird without obtaining the proper license, so on and so forth. But I'm just wondering if we need to insert some language in this legislation that would speak to the actual vehicle with which to take the game, or whether we need to speak, Representative Western, perhaps you've given that some thought?
Madam Chairwoman, I think that could be part of the discussion. My only concern there is that we're kind of maybe mission drift is the right term, or kind of getting away from just simply just granting that exemption that was that the people were seeking in the first place, just to, regardless of tag allocation. I think, if I recall correctly, she wanted to hunt, I think it was either a mule deer or whitetail. So I think if we want to have that discussion, I'm certainly welcome to it. I'm just worried it would get away from the original intent, which is just granting a simple exemption, narrowly defined. They have some kind of terminal illness. So,
Chief King, would that be conceivable that in that way? I'm just thinking about, and especially if it's a particular area, and I would assume that most hunters, resident and non-resident, would probably be more than willing to allow this within a particular area. But I do know some may have cause for concern about a animal being taken in an area without a license, just simply because of the numbers and, I don't know, maybe it's not necessary. Maybe like Representative Western, we're thinking this too much. I welcome your thoughts.
Sure, Madam Chair, thank you. I would suggest, so in the case of a hunter who wanted to take a trophy game animal, a black bear or a mountain lion, whether they were a resident or non-resident, they would be able to simply go down to their local sporting goods store and purchase a license over the counter. Those aren't limited in number. For other species, the statute that I was referring to is 23.1.705J. And 705J has the provision that the commission can issue licenses outside of the draw, essentially, to any person under the age of 20 that's suffering from a life-threatening illness. And the species which are identified are antelope, deer, elk, and turkey. And so I think for the most part, that statute should cover somebody who for example, that their hunting opportunity wasn't in a general license area, or if they were a non-resident. This provision that's already in statute, I think, could cover the majority of situations where obtaining the license would be a roadblock for somebody.
Thank you, Chief King. Representative Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. King, so out of the 50, if I heard you correctly, there are 50 licenses already set aside for that. Can you tell us how many of those are expended each year and how many are on life-threatening cases? And then I might have a follow-up, Madam Chairman.
Chief King.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Representative, that's a great question. So Currently, the statute doesn't set a limit on these licenses that can be set aside by the commission. Through regulation, we identified a number of 25 for each of those species. And over the last several years, we've failed to issue all of those licenses. So that has not been a roadblock in terms of the number of licenses available.
Representative Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So how far short of the, of that, given those licenses out, have we fallen? I mean, are we at 23, 24? Are we at the lower end of that?
Chief King.
Madam Chair, I don't have those numbers right handy in front of me. I did just look at them the other day, and I think that it's typically been in the range of 10 to 15 that we've issued. So we're quite a ways from that upper cap. And again, that cap is set in regulation. So if that became an issue, it should be fairly easy for the commission to promulgate rules to adjust that as necessary.
Thank you. Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do believe that we could definitely very easily get into the weeds if we start trying to figure out how to get a license to these individuals. I mean, because my son right now will contract a terminal illness to get a 128 type 1 mule deer tag. Just saying, because he knows that that is not something that you can get. And so he's 10. And so I just think that we're giving an opportunity for students, for kids who have been handed a really rough hand in life to have an opportunity and an awesome hunting experience in the state of Wyoming. With what the Game and Fish already has in place, we could make that reality. And then also on top of it, we do have the blessing of a lot of really good general hunt areas in this state. And I guarantee you that landowners would probably bend over backwards to help a kid out. So I think that under general tags and even some of our easier special draws or the program that Game and Fish already has in place, I don't think it needs to be addressed in this bill. Thank you very much, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you. Representative Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief King, my question goes back to the proposed January 1st, 2022 date that you suggested. Do you at this time have any requests for some young person that's in this condition to get a license?
Chief King.
Madam Chair, Representative Winter, at this time, we do not have any requests currently. We have not had one since the request that came in through Representative Winter's constituency. I would just speak a little bit on that enactment date. So typically, the commission has been directed that they can't start the process of promulgating a regulation until the statute becomes effective. If this statute were to become effective July 1, 2021, then the department through the commission could start that rulemaking process. I think in order to hit all the timelines that are identified in the APA, the soonest we could get it in place would be about November of 2021. And that's why my suggestion to go with an effective date of January 1, 2022 was made.
Thank you, Chief King. Further questions? Representative Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So to that end, Chief King, if you had a request that came in here in the next month or so, and we pushed it out to January 1st, which really would not make this upcoming big game hunt season available to those people. And the department's already proven that there's no way to provide exceptions except without this. If we amended that to a sooner date other than the January 1st date, you don't believe you could get anything done sooner?
Chief King?
Madam Chair, Representative Sweeney. So in order to go through the entire APA process, it would be that extended timeline. There is the opportunity that the commission could seek an emergency regulation. So for example, if this were to become effective July 1, 2021, the commission could seek an emergency regulation to get this in place sooner. That would require the governor's signature, and it would skip through the public input process into those regulations. That is an option that could be taken up to get this done quicker. Again, that emergency regulation provision would bypass the public input and the typical APA process that we promulgate regulations through.
Thank you. Representative Jennings?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. King, without getting into your opinion of which one's best, because I know as an agency you don't want to do that, but so could there be an avenue here to work this and amend current statute as to the age and not have a big policy change, except change the date so that these people could have basically almost immediate access? Would that be a possibility?
Chief King?
Let's see, Madam. I might have to give that one some thought. So the question is, could the current bill be changed in such a manner that we wouldn't have the rulemaking process necessary? Is that correct?
Representative Jennings?
No, Madam Chairman. Actually, going back to the 50 that already we have statute in place for life-threatening diseases or things of that nature. But I'm assuming that under that, it sounded like it was just under the age of 20, and it didn't seem like there was a bottom side to that, to where Representative Western's constituent wouldn't be available for that, if I was understanding the prohibition correctly. So if we reached into the current statute and that touches those licenses that are available, could we amend the age and make that immediate available without harming the current policy? Just changing the age so that she could immediately apply.
Chief King?
Madam Chair, Representative, I do think that has some potential. So within 23-1-705J, as you mentioned, that there's a current upper age limit to those licenses that can be issued by the commission. I think through a slight change in this current bill and a slight change in 23-1-705J, I think the department could potentially issue those licenses in 23-1-705J and allow for those licenses to be used by somebody down to a certain age limit. For example, if 10 were to be put in place, that could be an option, that modification to both 23-102 and 23-1-705J could get us there. That would take a little bit of effort to sketch that out, but I do think there's some possibility there.
Representative Newsom?
So Representative Western, I'm wondering why we have all of these implementation dates at the end of the bill. Why is it necessary to have 3 different implementation instructions?
Representative Western?
Madam Chairwoman, Representative Newsom. John Brody, I believe, is the LSO attorney who I worked with, and I kind of had a similar question. He just said, based on the APA and some of those other regulations that this was with the necessary dates, at least based on their writing of the legislation. I know that's kind of a vague and not a super concise answer, but that was at least what LSO told me.
Committee, further questions for Chief King or Representative Western at this time? Okay, stand by. Chief King, if you'd stand by as well, and I see Commissioner Novotny's in the room. Nope, you're just taking a nap back there. Okay. All right, well, we're glad to see you. Mr. Speaker, are you here to provide testimony on this bill? No? All right, well, we do not have any public testimony then. So Representative Western, would you like to join us? And committee, what is your pleasure? It's been moved by Sweeney, seconded by Newsom. And let us walk through the bill. Page 1. Before we actually move through that, I thought you all might be interested in actually hearing what the language is on 23-1705J for you, those of you who don't have that open in front of you. It says, in addition, the commission may issue upon payment of proper fees, any number set by rule and regulation of antelope licenses, deer licenses, elk licenses, and turkey licenses each year for the exclusive use by persons 20 years of age or younger with life-threatening illnesses who are sponsored by a nonprofit charitable organization with a mission to provide opportunities and experiences to persons with life-threatening or serious illness. As a condition of issuing the license, the sponsoring organization shall pay the appropriate license fee on behalf of the licensee and at no cost to the licensee. So before I proceed, it seems like we already have it in statute right now that this could be done. Chief King, am I correct?
So Madam Chair, you're correct in that we can issue these licenses. That's not an issue. The issue is what's the minimum age a person is required to be in order to utilize one of these licenses. And so currently by 23-2-102, that minimum age is 12. And so hence if the change brought forth in this bill is implemented, these would certainly be licenses that are available to individuals who are suffering from a life-threatening disease.
Okay, and so I get that. Then we need to make sure that the two statutes are in compliance. But it would seem then that with 23-1705J, you would not need to promulgate rules, that it would become effective as soon as we change the minimum age to 10.
Madam Chair, I think there's probably just some slight modifications in Chapter 44, our license issuance regulation that we would have to adjust, but I think you're right in that we could get that done through modification of that statute.
Okay, so we've moved the bill. Representative Jennings, did you have a comment before we proceed?
Madam Chairman, just a couple of questions.
Sure.
Probably to Representative Western and Mr.
Proceed.
King. So if we went back into that statute that the good chairman just spoke of, and it would seem to me, I guess my first question would be to Representative Western. Is the complication that occurred that brought this bill forward that the parents weren't allowed to make the request of the department? Because in the statute, it clearly states that it has to be an agency or a charitable. And so was that a problem? And secondly, if we were to address that and we added something like just parents or guardians so that they could be making the request also and lowered the age, would that satisfy, do you think? Because we could move on that much more immediately.
Representative Western.
Madam Chairwoman, yeah, I think as it 704J states that the mechanism is already there for these types of situations, but without this bill, it's the 23-2-102 that says it just sets that floor where we're just simply saying in kind of in the spirit of 704J, we're going to have, or excuse me, let the director and the commission have discretion on granting exemptions on that minimum age. So if you want to throw guardian or something other than that in there, yes, go ahead. Because in that specific situation, I think they tried to go through that process and the commission came back and the director said, we would love to continue this, but it's just really clearly defined that the minimum age is 12.
Okay. All right, so page 1. Do we have any additions? Okay, moving on to page 2. Page 3, any amendments? Representative Newsom or Vice Chairman?
Page 3, line 2, if we could delete hunt and put take. And then page 3, line 1. I am a bit torn about this because of Representative Hunt's comment, which a person could be suffering from not a life-threatening illness that is simply degenerative. So I'm going to leave that language in, but I think that hunt to take for conformity of our laws. And since I'm the queen of one-word amendments.
All right, do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of Vice Chairman Newsom's amendment to remove on page 3, line 2, the word hunt and insert take, please vote aye with a show of hands. No, same sign. It passes unanimously. Do I have any other amendments on page 3? Representative Sweeney?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I go back to line 1 and I'm not sure what problems that creates leaving progressive, degenerative, or malignant condition and putting in the verbiage that's in statute of life-threatening illness. And I guess I'm curious, I'm sure LSO didn't necessarily pick up on that.
We could confer with LSO just to ensure that maybe that we do need to make sure that we maintain existing language. It's up to it's up to this committee whether you want to keep it as written or make it conform with existing statute. Representative Hunt.
Madam Chair, that might be a good idea. And I don't think that it complicates the bill one way or another. But maybe we can just bring that as a committee of the whole amendment or something if LSO thinks that it's a serious problem. I mean, I get that we try to keep our language conforming. I just think that in this particular case, I am more comfortable with the longer, more cumbersome, but more detailed language just to cover all the bases. I think that to strictly say life-threatening illness, I think is in this particular case is a little bit difficult to define. And everybody understands what the intent of the legislation is, but I think that to cover those bases, to say specifically progressive, degenerative, or malignant condition is probably the best way to go unless LSO says otherwise for whatever reason.
Okay. Representative Winter.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Why couldn't we just add life-threatening illness right after condition? And we cover all the bases. Thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Representative Haroldson.
Just brainstorming here, but what if we said on line 23, page 2, where it says who are demonstrating they are suffering from a progressive, degenerative, or life-threatening illness currently placing the person's ability to take a big game or trophy animal in the immediate future in jeopardy. And I think we've almost kind of rolled it all into one there because it is the progressive or degenerative. We could get rid of malignant because at that point that is life-threatening. And then it would say life-threatening illness currently placing the person's take life or out and have ability to take. And I think we could clean that up. Maybe we could come under what Mr. King was saying, where we bring that vernacular in, but at the same time, what Representative Hunt said, we could still get that progressive or degenerative concept in there. Because I know someone right now who's 20 some odd years old, but he quit walking when he was 14.
Is that a motion, Representative Harold?
That is a motion.
So if I'm understanding your motion, then it would remove the word malignant condition and insert life-threatening illness.
Life-threatening illness, and then removing life or on page 3, line 2.
Okay, so please repeat your amendment.
Okay, so the amendment would read congruently on line 1, page 3, progressive degenerative or life-threatening illness would replace malignant condition. And then we would leave in currently placing the persons, and then we would remove life or as well, strike that. So then it would read placing the person's ability to take a big game or trophy game animal in the immediate future in jeopardy.
Okay, do I have a second? Representative Hunt. It's been moved and seconded. Does everybody understand the amendment? Barb, did you get that?
The second was Hunt.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Vice Chairman Newsom?
I'm wondering if I should withdraw my amendment because that incorporates my amendment. So we would just have one amendment.
No. Yours is fine. We've already moved, we've already voted on yours and it's fine.
And sorry, I just added that in. Sorry, Madam Chair, I just
Okay,
added it in our
Representative
amendment.
Sweeney?
So my question is removing the word life. I get, or is that already implied when if we add life-threatening illness?
Representative
Is
Sweeney, I
that the
believe that
thought?
was Representative Haroldson's point. Am I correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, I believe if we put life-threatening on line 1, that would be a redundancy to put life on line 2 or leave life in on line 2.
Okay, Representative Hunt?
And I thank you, Madam Chairman. I would totally agree with that. And 2, I think that in that, what we're really focusing on is ability anyway. I mean, someone who has a life-threatening illness and is dying, their ability is going to disappear before they pass away anyway. So I think that's covered everything.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of Representative Haroldson's amendment, please vote by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Do I have any other amendments? Representative Jennings?
Madam Chairman, I guess this would be a point of order for clarification for
Okay.
me. So if I've heard Mr. King correctly, and I've heard the bringer of the bill correctly, there might be the other way to do this of making amendments to current statute.
Mhm.
That if I understood the bringer correctly, and maybe he could answer this, that would stand a much better and much quicker response to the very same thing. So I'm wondering, as a point of order, and I don't know you or someone else could answer this, LSO. If we set, what would the procedure look like to set this off and go to the amendment so that we could address this in current statute and get an immediate response? So between you, Mr. King, and the good bringer of the bill,
Well,
Madam Chairman.
Representative Jennings, we don't have another bill in front of us that speaks to that other statute component that you are addressing. We could insert that within this bill as an amendment that would provide that vehicle to make this immediate. I mean, that's my assumption. I would prefer to get LSO's response. And Chairman Hunt, if you've done this a little longer than anybody else in the room, do you have any comment?
Madam Chairman, I think we can take care of the enactment just within this, I would, I don't know, it depends on where that other language is, but, with our rules being as they are to one subject, within bills, I would worry about that, clashing, coming into conflict with, being this, sticking to one subject in one bill. So I think that, Madam Chairman, I think that if it's a chief concern, that we just work with the section 3 that's right here and try and work that. I really think that would require a second piece of legislation, because my understanding is we're talking about another statute entirely, so.
I do too. Any other comments or questions? Representative Haroldson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Either way, we need to change the minimum age, which this does. And that's what was the hiccup or the holdup in this young lady's case, was the minimum age, which this does change. So I think that this is in a way an amendment to current statute, in the fact that we are bringing an option in for the minimum age to be lowered by the Game and Fish, or by us for Game and Fish, so that those under 12 could. So I think this is still needed as well.
So would anybody like to make an amendment with regard to the date, the effective date per Chief King's? And I ask that because even if we were to bring a committee of the whole amendment after conferring with LSO that might bring in Representative Jennings' suggestion, I think it's important that we deal with the effective date here today, based on the fact that the commission would need that time to promulgate rules, just so that we are covered in case we don't have, in case we don't bring an amendment. Am I making myself clear? So Representative Winter.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I would so move.
Okay, do I have a second? Hunt seconded. Moved by Winter, seconded by Hunt. Any other, and that would be January 1st of 2022, Representative Winter, okay?
Miss
Comment?
Madam
Representative
Chairman.
Sweeney?
I would, I have great respect for the Game of Fish. And this is, to me, one of those cases, I'm speaking against the amendment.
Okay.
And this is one of those cases that I think just needs to take place. And if they can accomplish it through emergency, I don't see a lot of public outpouring against something like this. So as part of their rulemaking, and having dealt with, been involved for quite a few years, up until the last couple of years, with Hunting with Heroes and working with the department with a variety of issues that they've been extremely helpful on, to get those hunters in the field. I just respectfully ask for a no vote on the amendment.
Very good,
So,
thank you. Further comments? Okay, it's been moved and seconded on the effective date change. All those in favor, please show by a raise of hand. Opposed, same sign. So we have 2 noes. Motion carries. All right, any other amendments, questions, comments? Okay, oh, Representative Hunt.
Question on the bill.
Question having been called. Barb, if you would please call the roll.
Representative Banks,
Aye.
Representative Haroldson,
Aye.
Representative Hunt, Representative Jennings, Representative Knapp,
Aye.
Representative Newsom, Representative Sweeney, Representative Winter,
Aye.
Chairwoman Flitner.
Aye.
Bill passes with amendments.
Thank you, Barb. Congratulations, Representative Western. And then maybe we could sit down with LSO and have a conference with maybe some, some of the suggested changes based on what Chief King had said. And Chief King, we thank you very much for your time today and thanks for joining the committee.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And Barb, thank you. Appreciate all you do for us. Anybody have any other questions? You all know that we are meeting with Representative Jennings and Haroldson. We are meeting tomorrow with appropriations. You do know that? Well, on Senate File 56. 56, right? That is at noon recess. That's the Gaming Commission bill. You do not have to be there, no, but we have been invited to work that bill with them jointly since it was our bill originally. So, they took it
And that's gonna be when, Madam Chair?
tomorrow
Okay.
at noon. And Barb, that will be right across the hall, correct? How are we all going to fit in there? Well, it'll be two committees. Mhm. Oh, okay. All right. Well, any questions, comments, anybody? Well, what was apparently a simple little bill, we definitely did not we made it less than that. So thank you all very much.